Are listening to Dr. Margaret and Dr. Katie Speaks this evening on Soma Fusion Media. And we are going to be talking about 6 degrees of separation. Now, we know that 6 degrees of separation theory, I should say, that there is a belief that we all know someone through someone else. Any two people will eventually be connected at maximum through the link of 6 people between them. And many people like to embrace this theory and often prove it correct. So if we believe this, why do people have such difficulty in understanding consciousness and energy, that we are all connected? Another way of saying the oneness. And is it exactly the same theory? Especially when we talk about spirituality in that sense. Now, for me personally, I could be talking about theories such as quantum theory or quantum mysticism or resonance theory, but that would go over everybody's head. And that I can save for another show for myself, if we're going to go that academically inclined. But tonight we're going to be talking all about what makes us connected, what makes us separated, and why we are so close in this vast universe. And not only that, it is actually now been proven that it is no longer a theory of 6 degrees of separation, but it is now actually scientifically improved that it is 3.6 degrees of separation. Now, we can go on and have a conversation about geometry here, and because obviously 6 degrees of separation can go straight into mathematics. But why does life have to be a mathematical equation? Why can't we? And at that point, we might as well just go into the Fibonacci sequence and try and work that out. But let's not go there. Let's talk about why we are connected and why we are separate and why we feel separate and connected at the same time. And so first off, I want to hear what Margaret has to say on this subject, and we'll take it from there.
Well, I don't actually go along with it. I'm being honest, because people want to have answers. This is where I'm coming from. People always want answers, and they want answers for the strange, the unusual, the different, and particularly right now, answers about why the brain and how the brain works and why we pick up stuff and don't pick up stuff. I've got to take you back in time before you were born to the days when they used to get wavy line cards, square pictures on it, wavy lines, squares, or hold up a pack of cards, and the person had to hold it and focus on it, and then there was a board or something between someone on the other side, and then they would have to try and focus psychically and pick up what it was. And I was one of the few that could say there was 20 cards, and I probably got 10 or 15 of them in those days. And guess what? I was cheating, because I've got a spirit guide looking over their shoulder telling me. And I even told them that. Now, to my mind, the human body and the way people think and the way they're reared is actually to be very limited and very restricted. And so the idea that you could be telepathic with someone else, which was much of what they were doing. And remember, they went off and tried to have spies going to Russia and find out what they're thinking. And of course, what they found out was that you could get there, but you couldn't hear, you couldn't see, you couldn't feel what that person was saying, because there is an unwritten law at that time that nobody knew, which has always been there, which is no one fragment in all of the universe and the oneness can actually go peep on someone else and hear them and read them and prophesy or tell them what they're going to do or something in the future, unless they give permission. So if you're being a spy trying to go over to Russia to pick their brains to find out what they're working on in terms of weapons or something, it is blocked. Now, you might see a shape, you might feel it's like a giant bullet, but you don't really know what you're looking at. And you could come off of that with all sorts of imaginative things in association with what you know, right? Mm-hmm. And start telling everyone, I saw a rocket, and all that you saw was really a bullet, but your mind has expanded it. Now, my point here of saying that is, we are creative and inventive. And anything that we create and invent will automatically, if we want to share it, be shared. So we're giving someone permission to read our mind, right? And now that we've got the computers and everything that's gone way, way far forward from anything back then in those days, we now are in a collective consciousness. And when I say collective consciousness, I mean, if you're open to investigate, you're open to share. And if you're doing that, you're going to be online picking up all sorts of stuff from all sorts of people. And I'm going to say it's not 6 degrees, it's 180 degrees that we're down here on this planet. And you can tap into anyone out there who is sharing. Now, we have to go into the dark side. So I'm taking a bit of time because I want people to understand it's not as easy as they think, okay? We're in the lower self here. There's the upper self up here. So we also have 180 degrees, only it's coming down this way at us. And so if we're developing our psychic ability and we're open to having that connection with the higher self, as I've been throughout my life, then I can tap into their wisdom and knowledge and bring that down into the embodiment of me and my students and whatever, which I've been doing for a very long time, sharing. And the growth of that is like a little bit in terms of there's 50 people in the class, should we say, and those 50 people go away. Now they have permission from me to share that and teach that and do that. So they do that. Now we're connected with their friends and associates through that. They may come back to my website to have a peep, you know, or they may decide, oh, I've met someone else in another part of the world who's doing something similar. It's never the same. We're never copycatting. And so they pick up their bits and pieces. And over time, more and more people are joining in. More and people are saying, oh, I like that about that. I like this about that. I don't like this about that, and so on. So we get the negative and the positive coming out of us down here in that 180 degrees. Meanwhile, we've got the higher ascended ones coming down to each of those who've reached out for the truth, and they're getting another input. So there's a higher and lower sense of everything that we do. And there are 5 laws that I wrote in most of my books. So I've got so many books at me.
For those who don't know what those 5 laws are, what are they?
Okay, pushing me. I'm going to give the easy version. When I channeled it originally, it was more sort of technical in the way it was said. Basically, the first law is we're each fragment. You're a fragment. I'm a fragment of all that is. And so if I try to invade your space and you're busy and you don't want to have anything to do with me at that moment, and you say no, and I keep pushing like, well, really, you know, Katie, I want to talk to you, you have the right to just close down the line and get off the phone. Now I could stand on the other side and go, how could you do that to me? Judgment. Okay, but if I'm in the oneness sense, in the very first moment that I say I want to talk to you and you're busy, I know I can't push you. So I'll just say, okay, you know, call me when you can. Okay, which is what most of us will do. But if we're negative, then we tend to, I want help, I want help. We keep pushing and pushing and pushing. Or I want people to know me. I want this, I want that, I want sharing, I want whatever. Then that builds up in a negative connotation. And then the next thing you know, you've got all the negative people saying, oh, I know how you mean. My friends blocked me and so stuff this. And so everything goes on the negative. So we've always got that positive and negative. And that is the universe. That is all that is out there is friction. And so when we're disturbing the force, and when Einstein was talking with me, and whatever my book is, I'm not good at thinking about everything at once. So when I wrote that book, what actually happened was I was explaining why, you know, something here can go clockwise and something can go anti-clockwise because of that friction. Quantum entanglement, a paranormal point of view. Thank you. That was the title he gave me. And I have to admit that whatever we're doing, I see it every day. Once I understood that consciousness, I see it every day, but I don't see it as degrees. So that's why I'm questioning. I'm going to throw it back to you.
Well,
Yeah.
that's why I just said, when we talk about a lot of things, even the Fibonacci secrets, we in the sacred geometry, anything that is related to anything that is scientific, we see in numbers. And I know that there are, numerology and sacred numbers and so on and so forth. But it's like going to trigonometry class. Why are we talking about? I mean, that goes into the same with just general physics. E equals mc squared. We can relate that to almost anything in the world, but yet we still see it as a mathematical equation, just like the Fibonacci sequence, just like 6 degrees of separation. Degrees is associated with mathematics, and so why is it that we have to know mathematics in order to know what's going on in the universe? Because a lot of people will just go whoop, straight over the top of their heads if you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, I can tell you, I'm going to tell you a little out-of-body experience I had many, many years ago. I was in my 20s. I was definitely asleep. I knew I'd come out of body, and I was sort of soaring over the ocean. I knew where I was going, but just like when you go shopping, you don't think I'm going down this road and over here and over there. You just go there, right? Mm-hmm. So I was going somewhere, and the next thing I knew, I was diving into the water of the ocean. I went down. And then I found this crevice. And because I'm a spirit form, not human form, I was able to sort of wind my way like a snake through this little gully. And I came up in the water into an air pocket that was really a big room. Mm-hmm. And in that room, was electronic stuff from way back in our world, in the billions of years, when species were here and were brilliant and so on. And of course, people are now talking about aliens have been here before and so on. So I arrive, I come up, and the light comes on. And it even knows, and it says, "Welcome, Margaret." It knew it was me, which surprised me. It's affecting my throat because this is a long time I've kind of kept these things to myself. And when I stood up in front of it, there was like 5 or 6 screens. Now, you have to realize this, I'm in my 20s. We got a TV, that was it. We had no videos, no recordings, nothing like that. So here I'm looking at what I can only describe as 4 foot, 6 foot, maybe screens, like you would go and buy a TV screen today. And as it said, "Welcome" to me, they all came on. And then what I saw, everyone that was working, because some of them were just dormant, they weren't doing anything, but 3 of them were working. And they were going down and they were bringing up, like we would look today, a page of links. And sorry, I'm giving away secrets here. And as the links came down, there was one that kind of came up like it would today. And I've been amazed over the years how I see all these things that we do on the computer now are so like what I was seeing so many years ago. And so I touched this one because it wasn't just that it came up like this towards me, it was 3D. So in my spirit sense, I touched it. And what I was touching was a logarithm. And now you're looking at a stupid idiot when it comes to logarithms. I the class, couldn't do it and gave up. And after all, how was that going to affect my nursing and my career? I didn't need that, But as I touched it, and this is the interesting part I want you to hear, it's a long story, but there we are. As I touched it, it was like all that information came into my head. And at that point, I felt like I was given, and my head's tingling while I'm thinking about it, because I know I'm stimulating some of it now. That information went into my brain, and I felt, without any reason of knowing on any sense of the word, "Now 'tis done." That was the words, "Now 'tis done." And so I left and I went away. Now I have to tell you another story. I went up to Washington. This is years later. I'm in my 50s or maybe early 60s, and I go to Washington State to be a keynote speaker, and the whole event was an absolute flop. Nobody turned up, not even one paying person came to the door because the PR wasn't done properly. So here am I, the keynote speaker, with no audience other than other booth people, and they came in the room, very grateful for that. Well, I could talk about the DNA and the RNA of children. And while I was talking about that, there was one gentleman there who was clicking with what I was saying. And he approached me afterwards and he said, Margaret, I have to do some work on you. Now, I can't remember the words because it's a long time ago, but he named this program. And he said, I have to get hold of a book, okay? And I will meet you tonight. It'll be late, like 9 o'clock at night. So he came to the room and he had this book, and he said that he had it done to him and he got to do it to me. And so he's putting his hands like this in certain weird ways, you know, literally doing this. I couldn't see it, but my friends are copying and showing me because they're sort of trying to do it themselves. And he's reading this text, which was apparently channeled by someone. And I wish I could remember the name of that book, but I'm sorry, I can't. Anyway, he went, it was done. I have to say I felt energy moving through my body, but that was all. And then my friend and I, we decided to put the light out and go to sleep. And as she put the light out, I'm looking at a plain wall in a, you know, in the bedroom with no mirrors, nothing or whatever, just a plain wall. And I think there was one picture hanging on the wall further down the room from where I was sleeping, looking at the wall. And as she put off the light, I was looking at a whole bunch of recording tapes that were something that we were using somewhere with games, video games. Do you remember how they were thick recorded books things that you slide in, the kids would play with their thing? And those were all anagram kind of programs. And I'm looking at these programs stacked down like this, all along the wall, all the way along the wall. And this is a 15-foot wall, and they're all there. And as I'm looking at, I hear spirit, these will be awakened within you. And at that point, I thought, oh, I don't know, and I'm tired. I went to sleep, and I woke up in the morning, and I didn't know anything had happened, but I noticed, my throat, I'm really clearing. I noticed that I had a different perspective on everything I've been doing. I was coming at it from a different angle. And since then, I've evolved so much, so much. I mean, I can't even talk to people about what I've evolved with because I'd lose them. I've tried a few times. And I have all this information, but about the universe, the oneness, aliens, you know, what they've done here, how they move the stones, you know, all these things that people are like, well, we don't know it. I know. And I know how it was done with the energy of sound and reverberation and resonation and all that. And this is exactly what Einstein was talking about right in the beginning. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to share that because I want people to realize out there that these young kids coming in, they've got it in their heads. It's in their soul coding, okay? And so someone like me first had to learn about the soul coding so I could write the books so the kids can then come along later and read the books. Mm-hmm. You know, so God knows what magic they're going to have. And I'm still wondering what's going on with my brain because like I'm talking now and the whole of my crown chakra is tingling and doing this all the time. And this has been going on now for about 3 months. Yeah. And I was born June the 24th, and when June the 24th turned on, that was when I turned on. I don't know what's happening. I just have to go with the flow. So when you brought up this 6th degree, you know, which is what someone has done, and the idea of, you know, the formulas and everything, I have an answer for that. In the ways of the universe, if you try to describe it, you will go in this, because we're here, this kind of species, you will go into an emotion. And the thing about the universe is it does not have emotion. It is, it exists. And so a formula whatever that formula might be that comes to you, is going to be a proof of existence. And you don't have to justify or explain it or rationalize it. And there are people who are born now on this planet who are like that. And I've met a couple of people like that, and they're talking away in such a highbrow scenario to an audience. And I'm looking around, and I could tell you that people were like, looking at the watch, and they couldn't understand him. I think I was the only one in the room that did. Okay. And I went up to him afterwards and talked to him about, he was talking about the essences actually of various foods and things. So it was very, for me, interesting. But can you imagine talking about let's pick something, a hot dog. And someone is describing that hot dog in a formula, a mathematical formula. That's what he was doing. He was breaking science. He was describing the fat molecules. He was describing,
Well, that's why I just said it's so hard not to diversify yourself from mathematical equation to actually trying to explain something in relative terms so that it's understood by the wider community.
And you can do the same with your body. You can actually break your body down, each part of your body, into a formula. So what I do know so far, and remember, I'm still saying I'm an idiot, that if I have this formula and I have this formula, what I have to find is not how to do that, but it's like the way they showed me, the formula is like one of those Japanese or Chinese, whatever they are, puzzles where you've got to know which bit to press or push to make it open, and you can be fiddling with it for hours, and like the Rubik cube, and never get it to open. Well, it's the same with these formulas. There's only one way they hook together, and on that level it's anatomic, and then it becomes atomic, and then it goes into cosmic. So it's so vast. Our brains are only 6% working.
I thought it was 9%.
No, 6. People like to think they've got 9%, but that's their psychic ability working.
Now, I could go into a completely different direction here.
Okay, do.
And actually, but I will save that for another show, because the mind and the creative ratio as to what lies dormant and how much of our brain capacity that we use in comparison scientifically to dolphins, so to speak, or maybe AI, or what we call Lucy, not the ape we're talking about.
No, the skull.
But yeah, no, apparently that is a myth. But that's a whole different kettle of fish that I'd have to look into it. But I from what I understood, I thought it was always 9%, and the other 89% was lying dormant, ready for us to tap into. But I never thought it was 6%.
Yeah, well, I got to say, back when I was young, I was working with researchers in London University was very open in those days to researching. And I basically felt that whatever I was doing with them, because I didn't know what I know today, I was still just a little psychic going around proving survival of life after death. But when they knew how accurate I was, they wanted to test my brain to find out, what I could do. And that's why I got into all these silly tests and things. But the bottom line was that if you gave someone in those days, and I see it the same today, they're investigating their ooh-ah, like they wanted to know how heavy the spirit was. And they had all these different people doing different stuff to get out of body so they could see the weight before and after. And I was the only one that they had something like 0.5 gram or something weight difference, because I did come out of body. And they're like, wow, it's so exciting. We know how heavy the spirit is. I said, no, you don't. For all you know, I could have passed some gas while I was out, because gas weighs something. Okay, so that they was like, oh God, what are we going to do now with that, and so on. Well, it's the same today when people have new discoveries and they come out and share it. There's always someone that's like, wow, I'm amazed and I can't deal with it, or I'm going to, and I'm going to try and prove that point and so on, to someone who's going to say, that's absolute rubbish. And I'm using a polite word now, they're much stronger than that, and just put a kibosh on everything. That's another word that's a blockage, a German word. Something I grew up with because of England and the war. So they put a stop on anything that might take us in a new direction, because if our brain develops too fast, too quickly on something, then we could, as we usually do, go in fear into the negative mode and then, make it something it isn't.
Yeah.
And we're so clever at doing twisting and turning knobs in our heads, as it were.
Of course we are. And now Donna, Ted just wrote there that he goes, wait, 6%. Dang, mine only works at 2%. Yeah. But I wonder whether the brain capacity, and it's not in relation to this comment, but I wonder whether the more medications, like pharma medications that we get put on, the more diminished our brain capacity becomes, because we're obviously being sedated by whatever chemicals that have been put into our body. Donna just wrote up there, the last research I heard that yes, it was a myth, and that we do actually use all the different parts of our brains at different times for different needs, but that's more than 2 to 6% that she said. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we have to clarify the 6%. What we're saying about the 6% is not our brilliance, not our way our brain is working. What we're saying is we can only handle about 6% of whatever is new to us and whatever is a learning process.
Yeah, but the other thing is too, is that if you, like myself, like I'm someone that I don't know if I'm programmed, but I taught myself to use at all times my critical thinking skills, so that I can continually process information and absorb it at the same time, and then provide it with feedback. Now, not very many people can actually do that. Well, I'm not just singling myself out here, but there are many people out there that really don't have, they either have ignorance or they don't have the patience to actually learn because they're stuck in cognitive rigidity.
Well, you have to remember, let's go into, as we're dealing with 9/11, and let's go into Hitler, not the war, but Hitler's desire to understand the oneness. He sent all his whoever bees out into search to find all the artwork and all the clues and things that might give us insight into not only our technology, but also to our history, and to find the mystery of the world. And that in its role at that time was a motivation for that entity, Hitler, to come into the world and try and find himself, and also try and find the wisdom of the ages. But what he did was he did it in the negative, right? And there are many, many people, i.e. we're coming back to 9/11, why I mentioned this, is who think they know the answers because they put 2 and 2 together and made it 22 instead of 4. And so the same now, after all these years with Tesla saying about sound and energy, they're finally beginning to understand it in terms of, all the scientists have been fiddling around with it. They're starting to understand the manipulation of energy. And I'll bring you back to something we talked before about, where you can put sand on a drum and play music right next to the drum, and that sand will go into a geometrical shape depending on the note. So for example, you could have, say, the key of C, and you could have a star. I can't remember which shapes were there, but it's fascinating to play a classical piece of music and watch that sand jumping around and the changing of the energy constantly into some kind of mathematical shape. And as you know, I was drawing all those when I was 6, 7 years old, and coloring them in. I didn't know what they were, but I loved doing it. And I'm going back to my little trip under the ocean into that room. There was a part of me that knew that each one of those, you know, I don't know what I want to really call them, because, you know, when you name something, you limit it. So I'm just going to say a pattern of numbers and shapes and things. To me, that was like looking at a book, but I couldn't recall the book. And so I want to say that from that, we all have programmed within us the universe, the oneness, or whatever it is, because we are the universe, we are the oneness, but we're like one speck in it. And each one of us has our own little program that we want to use ourselves, right? You know what? I'm not hearing myself in my headset. This is what happened when I was doing my show last night. Do I sound loud enough to you?
You sound fine, my dear.
Because I'm not hearing me there. I'm just hearing me in the room.
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay. So in terms of our perceptions, is where I'm coming back to by using these examples. The conscious mind is only able to use that 6%. So that's where we get it from. Because if I say to you, I want you to think about 5 things at once, here we're going, which one's most important, which one is most up that people are interested in, I can do that, and you might collage them and come up with a story between them, but you can't totally follow all 5 things at the same time. Now, the little grays, they can do that. And when you listen to them, when they're talking to you, you have to be able to do that with them. Otherwise, you don't know. So let's say they're saying, okay, we want to investigate the womb. At the same time, we want to understand her psychological state. At the same time, we want to be sure that we don't damage any tissue. I'm just giving you things that we would think separately. They can think all of that at the same time, and you can hear it in your head while they're working on you all at the same time. And that's the only way we can understand them, is listening. And as you know, I've been talking a lot about the Aquarian age and listening. At the Piscean age, no listening. It's all think out loud, talk out loud, say you know that your hearsay is right and everybody else is wrong, and so on. But when you can hear in a room, and I'm bringing this back to our physicalness, with a group of 3 or 4 people and they all talk at once, you notice you can listen to those 3 or 4 people and get the gist of what they're saying, right? You may not hear every single word, but you get the gist. Well, that's what the Greys can do, is they can think all these things at the same time and have all these conversations at the same time while they're working. And you're lying there and you're hearing what they're saying, but you don't necessarily understand it all. I didn't write that in my book. It's too complicated. too complicated for people to know. Yeah.
We're recording, so you can write it down. No, but no, you know, if we talk about this as, you know, energy, because that's what we're really talking about, is energy. I mean, before the show just went on, we were just talking about Einstein and E=mc². Like, people are still trying to figure out that formula and still can't come.
And now tell people who don't know what ECM² means.
It's all about energy.
Yeah, but what's it mean?
What does it mean? It means that light itself is a form of energy called electromagnetic radiation, which can exist as particles or waves of energy. So, for instance, like a photon packet is of energy that is quantum. It's basically as small as particle of light. It goes into light refraction, goes into time space.
So you're describing it, but you're not telling what E stands for, C stands for, M stands for, squared. Okay. See, my point is what we did on the last show. Oh, I've got PD. Okay. I have a penile dysfunction. Where's my penis? I don't have one. What the hell are they talking about? You know, that is the way of nature here in mankind. So they hear EMC squared, they go, okay, I know all about energy squared, but they don't really know what he was thinking when he said that and the actual words that it stands for. And I'm not about to become a scientist and explain that. But my point is that we start to validate it according to this brain box here, this 6% that has acquired a certain amount of information. And then we validate it by trying to align with it and feel it and justify our expression of what it actually means. To go into the brain and just be intellectual, I can say I did that. This is another story, sorry, hogging the scene here, but it was really strange for me being a trance medium. I channeled one of the aliens who is highly intellectual for the public. It was about 40 people in the room, and the voice was monotone. There was no ups and downs in my voice at all, because they recorded it so I could listen to it. And he was talking about the energy of the universe collectively into the consciousness of everyone in that room. I'm talking 1983 or 4 when I first came back to the country. Okay, nobody knew what the hell they were talking about. Okay, I know that was recorded, and I know it was on a cassette, and I went hunting for it and I cannot find it. But I have a few that are stuck together, so it might be one of those. But can you imagine talking like a robot? Third time is now, and we are ready to speak. You want to do it? Do you want to do it? I do not want to do it. Well, we can do it like that, but you imagine you're talking about theories and practice and teaching people in that monotone.
I can, honestly, to be really, really honest, I can seriously do that. I become inhuman when I go academic. I'm completely inhuman. And how I do that, I have no idea. And only people pick me up on it. And I'm like, I sound like that? I'm like, I do.
Well, I can tell you that, my journeys into my own brain have led me to understand that I think it was Donna that said that the whole of the brain works. It's all working. But the thing is, the conscious mind can't handle the entire brain working. So, for example, if you're thinking you've got to go to the bathroom, at the same time you're thinking about a thesis you want to write, at the same time you're thinking about whether the kids are going to be at home or not, and all these things are flashing through your mind, you're singularizing it. But it's back here, it's all jumbled up together. And so what happens is the subconscious shifts it into pictures. And so when you see a picture, and you know how we say a picture is 1,000 words. So then we can go off at a tangent and dramatize it into an emotional scenario where we can now identify it. And that's how our brains work at this time. Whereas the opposite is with the grays, because they are all back here and know everything, and they're bringing it forward into visualization and pictorial images to then explain it. So they're working on becoming more humanoid, if you like, in terms of understanding the anatomy and the physiology of the human nature of how we feel, because they've long forgotten how to feel. But they do feel. I mean, they can touch you and they can feel your body, but I'm talking about feeling. They have kindness, they have caring, but there's no word for it.
So for those who don't know what on earth we are talking about,
the grays.
What the hell are the grays?
The grays are the aliens that I work with, and that's what people called them. I'm not going to go into their names and there's different species. They're not the only one species, just as we're not the only one species. We've got black, pink, blue, purple people, and we have different dialogues and different languages and different things. Well, they have small little ones who are 3 foot, then you have 4 foot ones, and we have 6 foot ones, and we actually have 8 and 10 foot ones as well. So they don't really talk with us much. I only know about them because they are the overseers. They're like spirit guides to the lower ones. So it's kind of a whole different format. But here's a typical example of what Einstein was talking about. Form has developed in the reverse of us. So, you start with the grand big thing, which is, we might say, an archangel who develops different forms, and then down through time they evolve to get smaller. We, on the other hand, were put down here as like 3 foot people, size of an ape, say, and now we've got people who are playing basketball who are 7'6", and have you ever stood with someone who's 7'6"? You feel like you're a child again. No, seriously, I had one guy I met, I'm looking up like this. And I remember thinking, oh, it's like being a baby again, a child again.
Yeah, but when you're already tall, you don't really take notice so much. You just notice that they're tall.
Well, this person, we were able to have a quick discussion about how he can just put the ball in the net, and he didn't want to, he was doing that at school, but he didn't want to be that. He wanted to go into science, actually, which I thought, I don't know what happened to him. This years ago. And he was way the prior, they were saying it was a genetic thing and he was growing too much, but I told him it wasn't. I knew he was going to reach a level and that would be it. And so he was about 7'3" or something. I don't know. I said 7'6", but maybe 7'3". But what difference does 3-inch make to us when we're looking up like this? Any more than when we're toddling around on the floor and we're looking up at a 4'6" mummy. She looks tall to us. It's all perception, isn't it?
Exactly. And speaking of science, I just wanted to throw out there, because I'm so proud, and this is off topic, that my 7-year-old son won an award for curiosity for science, the category of science at school already.
Well, there you are. Wonderful. Clap, clap, clap. Yes. And give him our love. But also, you see, that's proof of the pudding of what I was saying. These kids are coming in with the programs awakened.
Well, he's actually now name at school is the little scientist. He's actually teaching his teacher a lot of things. He is now writing his own little diary that tells, basically, is to recount everything that he's worked for learnt the entire day. And not only that, on top of that, he's also been put into an acceleration program, which for advanced mathematics, for 3 days a week, every single week of the year.
And guess what's going to happen in time? You're going to be going, I'm left behind. Yes, darling, you're very clever. You have to find someone else to talk to, because I can't.
Oh my god. Oh my god. My son is a mini me. What the hell? I'm going to have a scientist as my son. What the hell? But yeah.
You wait till the kids come in who can speak 3 and 4 and 5 languages, just like that.
And I am seriously having a conversation with my son, right, during the day and whatnot. Yeah, especially on the weekends. We kind of bond over the weekends with my sons, and because they're not at school. And he's coming back and he's having adult conversations with me, because his intellect is nowhere near that of a child. So in a way, he's an old soul.
Well, old souls obviously can handle more because they've had more incarnations. But if we get away from that and our religion and our philosophy and everything else, and because I was on the ship so many times working with my daughter and others and teaching them how to bring the mind forward into the emotions, and they're all on another planet now. We populate other planets as well, and so on. There's so much going on that people don't know about. So the bottom line is that when you bring a child that's highly intelligent, and this is part of what I was seeing with, didn't clear my throat yet. Anything I'm doing to do with, history and what I've been through is, like I said, with my brain box changing. So excuse me, coughing. Coming back into what I was saying, when you have a child that's 90% up here, and now they got to deal with the emotions in earthly days, they're either going to sort of step back and say, it's okay, it's not important to me, I'm going to go in the room and do my reading or doing something. But I'm worried because I don't want to see these children missing out on the emotions, because the emotions teach us the love of life. And if you're just looking at a screen or talking intellect with highbrow people, as they used to say, highbrow, because they're eyebrows, it's like your brain's up here instead of in your eyes. You know, all these sayings that we have come from the times when we didn't know anything, and we still use them, you know, which is interesting. But coming back, you know, if we don't get them down into the emotions, that's going to make a whole race of intellectual people who are cold. We don't need that. We're in a whole race of humans right now who are too emotional. So we have to find that balance. Right now, people are angry, they're fighting, they're burning things, they're, you know, up against their politicians who are lying to them or whatever it is in some way. You know, it's a mess, and people are emotionally upset, angry, and afraid. But imagine if we can really find that balance and be able to say, I have this intellect, but I know how to use it emotionally without distraction, because we don't. Like if I say you're a man, obviously you're not, but say if I was talking to you and week in, week out, I suddenly thought, oh, I really like him, and maybe there's something going between us because we really spark online, and then I start building up the idea of romance, and then after a while I think, okay, I'm going to go and meet her, I know what you look like, we know how we talk, we've done it on the phone, we've done it here, blah blah blah, and I meet you, and let's say, because I'm using a male form, you strip off and you're full of hairs all over your body, and I happen to not like hairy men.
I'd be asking you, why are you dating an ape?
Well, I'm using something that at 19 or 20, I was dating this guy and we went by the ocean and I liked him a lot. And when he took that shirt off, I never forgot that. It was like, oh my God. And I've met a lot of people since, and I don't do that. But you know, when you've got a set mind that, you know, Prince Charming is supposed to look like a certain thing, then you try and make him become that certain thing. So like if I'd have dated him for indefinitely, I'd have probably suggested to have a shave on his back, which would not be good. But years later, I did actually meet someone who told me in a confession kind of session with me that he shaved his entire body because when he grows it out, he's hairy. And I said, well, what were you like as a child? She said, well, it wasn't that hairy, but I started shaving when I was 12. I said, well, what? You couldn't have had anything on it. He said, I was just shaving everywhere. Well, look what happens. You know, if you do something in a repeat pattern in a human body, it is going to grow more and more and more, you know, and hair grows more and more when you shave it off.
It goes with the ladies as well.
Yeah, of course.
Continually keep doing it, you're going to have thicker hair.
Exactly. Yeah. So my point of this little story here is to say we get fixations on something we've done and we think we have to keep doing it. And so over time, we get a blocked mind. We can't go past it.
But then it becomes unacceptable because we're going against society's norms. Now, I know that there's now a growing movement about women who don't shave their underarms. Now, that is people look, and it's the same goes with the whole big long facade about not liking women to breastfeed in public. Same thing with underarms.
Well, you're looking at, I'm sorry, I'm interjecting here, but you're looking at the early 1900s when it was disgusting for a woman to do those things. And I remember being 4 or so, and my mother was got some new cream that you put on, oh boy, did that stink. It was awful. And doing that for when she was going to wear swims, sort of suns, you know, they had those elastic body things, that sun suits with a strap over. And of course, you know, everything shows. So the design, and this is my point, it's not what my mum was doing. It is the design of the dress that stimulated her to go buy that awful cream, to take off these hairs. And I remember after she'd gone through all of that, she just came back one day and she said, I'm not wearing this awful dress, because she didn't want to do that anymore. See, that was her generation that was learning to go beyond the limits of the early 1900s. Now here we are in 20s, and we are still doing that same thing in a different way. Someone comes out with a new product for our bowels, for example. Oh, we got to buy that, you know. So whatever we do to our bodies always has a mental attachment of the reason why we're doing it. And the reason why we're doing it is because everybody else is doing it. And we want to be the same. And yet, as we are the same, we complain that we're not unique and different. So we all want this something else. And so we start reaching out for a new direction, a new mind, a new something. And our aura is expanding and contracting as we do that. Now, if I'm standing next to you and I've got a new idea, you will feel me because of your psyche and say, what's new? What are you doing that's new? Now I have to tell you. And as I start telling you, you're associating it, then you understand it and you tell someone else. So we have a chain reaction just by sharing and feeling one another. But I'm going to go even bigger. You go into a mall, and I've been teaching my students for years to close all the chakras, because if you go into a mall open with all your chakras, your aura saying, I'm here, everybody, do give me all your shit. Literally. Okay, so you walk past them, or let's say we want to be a messiah, you walk past them thinking of giving them all healing. And what you're actually doing is giving them your life force, and you're drained at the end of the day, and you get home and you think, what on earth did I just do? Right? But if you close those chakras and you walk amongst them, it's bouncing off you. Okay. Well, it's the same with you know, the energy in the universe. If you're embraced it, if you're a part of it, and you know, like your spirit out of body, you're just energy. And when you want to go to another planet, it's full star on the right and second star on the left. And hey, we arrive, and it's in the blink of an eye. There's no faster than speed of light. There's no faster than time or anything. It's just I am, and I'm there. Well, that concept for the average person is like baloney. You can't come out of your body. You can't go through the heavens and arrive somewhere else. Oh, and you tell me what you did and what you learned. Oh, that's interesting, but that's a dream. I've had people say that to me, and they'll try and put me down and tie me down because it's too fearful for them to absorb it and change.
I mean, we could also equate that to when Jesus said the kingdom of God is within you. And when he meant it literally, our awareness becomes centered in our subtle body, energy body. So the more happy and fulfilled and loving and passionate and energetic, the more calm we feel. And so we are actually flowing or centered in the moment.
Yeah, and that is a reality for us all, and we know it.
Yeah, but
the minute you try and take someone past it, they've got animosity because it's too fearful to go beyond the known.
Exactly right. And that's exactly right. And of course, you know, it's a concept of many that most people, even the most common sensed people, can't even grasp the concept itself. Ted just wrote, the manipulation of energy is the fact that our power is suppressed by our very self-limiting beliefs. Trauma being one of the hugest things causing the world to be in fear and hate.
And that's exactly right, because that creates the dynamics of controversy that also creates the friction that then ensures life continues. And I'm going to go back to the second law where I was talking about each of us. I stopped in the first law because it's all been about the first law, what we've been talking about. The second law is that we are responsible for our interactions and our reactions. So if you screamed and yelled at me and I screamed and yelled at you back, we have an interaction that is negative. But is it? Because ultimately we could sort something out and agree to disagree, or to agree to get one another's point and harmonize. There's always that unknown factor, whether the interaction is meant to be or not meant to be. So this law, each is responsible for what we do, is the absolute. It's like God is responsible for creating all form, but he's not responsible for how the form functions. Okay, so we have to have a self-controlling part in this brain of ours that says, don't overstep the mark, be sensible and act in accordance with the way standards are of our time. I keep seeing my image is fluctuating as well. Do you see that on yours?
No, you're fine.
Okay, because it's like it's stopping and starting, and I don't know if the signal's not good here in town.
You're doing fine.
Let me know if you, because I'm not hearing myself in my ears and I'm seeing something going on with the picture occasionally. Okay, so the third law is basically that we must love one another and do that without judgment. Okay, I've seen people, I'm going to take a silly one that I heard years ago. Someone came in and she was wearing a new dress and she said, what do you think? And everyone looked at her and thought, my God, literally, because it was a way out ridiculous dress that she found at some, this is in California, in some secondhand store where they took all the costumes from movies that they didn't want anymore and put them on their racks. And of course, people living in LA want to dress up and look like stars or whatever. So it was somebody's that kind of dress, one of the stars with, where things point out here and go over here. And we were like, well, it's nice. It's stylish, it's different, but when are you going to wear it? Where are you going to wear it? That's how we are. We automatically come to a conclusion and impose that on someone else. And have to give our thoughts and our ideas to help that person do the right thing, because we don't want them to be an idiot and look stupid out in public. But we don't have that right to evade from the second law. We're supposed to let them go out and look stupid if they want to.
Which brings me to the second part of why we are doing this show tonight. Now, we themed it 6 degrees of separation. Now, we've already gone through all of that and what it is. So if you are new to listening to this show, I suggest you listen to the archives so that you can hear the explanation about what we give, especially with the analogy that we do provide. Now, with what you just said, we can actually talk about the separatedness of people and in the connections that we have, and how we unabashedly push people away when we should have a fulfilling connection with them, whether it be, and it's kind of like bridging into karma, it's bridging into the everyday society that we now live in, that literally unabridges the gaps that we have, which causes more chaos and more judgment and more fear than we've ever had before.
Well, I'm hearing from spirits. I'm going to tell you this a little bit. They said, in the beginning was a few, then later there were many, and now there are too many. And having too many means there's a multitude of consciousness being shared in unknown ways, in a variety of ways, that people are looking into. They're getting little bits and pieces, not the whole story. And so this world is full of confusion right now. What is truth? What is a lie? The energy is the seesaw, rocking backwards and forwards. We're enjoying pushing up to a spa, but we hate it. We have to come down to reality. Thank you. Okay, Cornelius has just popped in my head. He's been around a bit lately because he's wanting to teach through me again. And so, okay, you leaving? Okay, he says he'll be back. But he just wanted to say that. And we have to realize that we're used to a seesaw because we've had our generation, your generation, have had the history of 200 years of seesawing through war, pain, suffering, disease, and now we've got the dreaded lurgy, the word COVID. I'm not saying out loud because somebody out there will hear that one word and it is gone, and you won't be able to hear what we have to say.
That's totally okay because you just spelt it wrong anyway, so it's all good.
I did. Okay. Well, I told you I was bad at English.
You just COVID.
I know. Oh, I missed that. Oh, okay, I get you.
You can't spell tonight. You're using only 2% of your brain, Margaret. Go back.
Right. You're right. But isn't that typical of what we all do out there, where brain is running at 100 miles an hour, and we're trying to. I know what happens to me is if I'm trying to do too much, too fast, too quickly, I lose the words right now.
You know what, I'm writing text messages to people, communicating, by text, or especially through Messenger or even on my cell phone or something like that. And I'm writing and I'm like, hang on. And I've read back what I've written. I'm like, hold up, I'm missing a whole heap of words. What the hell? And I'm like, but it turns out that my fingers are typing faster. Has nothing to do with auto correct on my phone. It literally is, or even on my keyboard. It literally is that my brain is working. No, my fingers are working faster than my brain, and somehow they're making a connection, and I'm just missing a whole heap of words. It's like and when you read it back, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
I've been doing something similar. But then I'm a medium, so I put it down to that. I hope it's that, not something else going on with me. But for example, I might be thinking I'm typing and the cat sat on the mat and the mat was warm and cozy. And I go back and look and I've got the dog was hot and he was waiting for a drink of water. And I'm like, I didn't type that. Well, I thought at first that the word spelling check thing, because you could make a little typo, is getting, say, the word do, and they put the G on the end, dog, and then it hears what I'm saying or when I'm talking or writing, because it happens both ways, and fills in a sentence that it thinks I'm going to write. That's what I come to the conclusion that is happening, rather than me typing a subliminal message that I don't know.
If I repeated everything that you just said, then I would have said cat, mat, food. And I still would have remembered it.
Yeah, see, but there's a logic link between that. Whereas I'm saying what's coming up on the computer is often it's not, and it's a word association. It fills in a whole sentence. It's something to do with the logarithm of the computer, I believe. And I went to my WizKid and I said, this is happening. He said, oh, the web's slow and this and that and so on. And who knows? He didn't even know why it was doing it. But he thought too, it's possible that it's word filling in.
Your computer or your phone?
My computer and my phone, because they're locked together. It says, make sure this is locked to that, and all devices talk to one another, blah, blah.
So that there is a thing in settings on all phones. I know that my phone definitely doesn't have the auto, whatever it's called. Not auto correct, but it's like,
no, it just links your phone, your computer, your iPad, your tablet, wherever you've got.
You've got an iPad, so that makes it a little bit more difficult. I know that there's some of the other brands and that, especially iPads and anything that's Apple, and some of the like Samsung, which is the rivalry of Apple. They tend to have very similar algorithms and AI technologies used within them. So, but with all the other phones that's outside of that, generally most of that you can actually turn it off.
Well, I'm not being technical. I'd press the wrong button and then I'd be screaming, what have I done? So I put up with it. But that is a rationale I'm saying. But there are other times when I'm actually typing one of my books, and I'm not talking recently, I'm talking because they're all published, but I'm talking about when I have been typing back, and with spirit in my head, I'm like this, I'm woman possessed, you know, typing probably 130 words a minute or something. I've always been a fast typer, but it doesn't mean I don't make mistakes, but yeah, I turn off spell check so I don't get something filled in, and I'm typing away, and then I'll go back and grammatize it and whatever. During that time, I would find that I'm so in the mode that I'm thinking ABC, but I'm writing XYZ. And I go back to read it, as I said, and I've written a whole paragraph and I didn't remember writing it. Yeah, and yet I'm not in a trance, I'm not asleep, I'm just in a habit. My brain is like this. Yeah, and I haven't taken in a word of it.
That's the other 94% of the brain that we don't use. Because subconscious is telling you something that we don't really need to necessarily find out.
Yeah, it is. It's like going into dream mode, and you know you've dreamed it, and you know you've typed it, but you don't remember anything. It's there, and you go back and read it. This is good. I didn't write this. It's not my type of writing, and I know I've channeled it. So that is another part of what is going on universally on this planet. There are people downloading right now a lot of information and sharing it. I see emails coming to me all the time with lots of stuff they've written, and some of it's really good, and I sit there going, oh, that makes me think, but other of it I'm going, no, that's imagination, illusion. How do we know the difference between imagination, illusion, and reality of something that we're given from the oneness that is so far advanced?
Well, we don't.
That we don't. That's their point. Yeah.
We don't, because we separate ourselves from that because we're always finding an escape route. Because we don't want to deal with the problem at hand that we deal with on an everyday or daily basis, because there's so much chaos and crap going on in our lives, but it's hard to unfilter the filtered stuff.
And that brings me into the fourth law, like attracts like in the mirror image. And so if we are downloading all this stuff, you are bound to notice someone else who's downloading stuff, and that pulls you in. And then when you pulled in, you want to know the answers. So you listen a little bit more and you try a little bit more. And that kind of is like getting a new insight to a little itty bitty part of a new program that you're going to download eventually, or awaken, if you want to think of it another way. It takes time for us as individual humans to know we're even doing that. And even in the beginning, I've had people come to me, my brain's doing weird things. I'm talking out loud when I don't want to be, and I don't know why I'm doing this, and it's really weird. What's happening to me? I thought, you're channeling. Channeling? Me? Never,
It's like nature to me. No, I do that all the time, and I don't even realize I'm even doing it.
So when people don't have any of this, and it awakens in them, they feel like they're going insane. See?
Of course they are.
So here's that judgment in the fourth law. It's like attracts like in the mirror image, to learn to not judge and to just go with the flow and enjoy it. And for most people, when that happens, they've stepped outside of the box. It's a fearful thing that, I'm going insane. And then when they maybe are fighting to explain that they're not insane, they really have this idea, everyone around them has still put them in the insane box because they don't want to accept what they're saying.
And that's that's the same reason why I don't like calling people crazy.
Well,
because crazy is actually a really
what is crazy, when I was working with mental institutes, going as a counselor, watching these people who were on drugs, So number one, their resistance to their independence was taken from them. Number two, they were mostly nodding off all the time because those drugs were narcotic. And they didn't know what they know today about them. So people were taking it, anything for a quiet life in their brain box, you know. And then they'd be nodding off, and then they'd be suddenly sitting up like this and channeling. This was a golden opportunity for spirit guides, their spirit guides, to come in and help them. But the problem was these mental institutes had loads of earthbound spirits. Earthbound spirits are people being on drugs, being murdered, or, you know, accidents happen. They just don't know they're dead, and they haunt their old places. And they look for someone who's psychic to adhere to them and to telepathically communicate. And then these mental people would be sitting like this, and they'd come up, you know, and start talking. I'm going to kill you. You don't listen to me, you know, whatever, and say these things in this weird voice. And everyone's like, oh my God, what's going on? This person's really insane. Give them more drugs. Well, I was able to tell the doctors, no, this person's a medium. They're channeling, and they're doing it on the negative side. And right now, that is a very big point to be aware of. People are getting together and they're playing music, and they're, you know, channeling, and they're bringing in higher entities. And when you walk in a room like that, the energy is so refined that you feel like you've walked into a church, or, you know, go somewhere even bigger, you know, spiritual, and you feel it. Well, when you walk into a mental home, it's like, oh my God, you know, I want to hide, because there's so much negativity from the people who are inmates. The doctors are having to deal with the inmates, and the buildings themselves, where energy goes into the wall. And that brings me to another law, the sixth law, love God. So if I'm walking down that corridor, and I feel that energy in that building, my natural instinct as loving God is, I want to heal the building. I want to change the building. I want to clear it of all those earthbounds and ascend them. And that's why Jesus said he went in 3 days into hell to rescue all those earthbound people who died believing they would never go to heaven. And so they didn't, and wouldn't allow themselves to go, you know, so they go to hell. Well, we've got past that. And with Einstein's theory, coming back to that, we realized that as below, so above, and proving the point that we can have an effect. So why would we be doing opposite? It's because there's only a way of growth and learning by having that friction in the middle. If everything was just, yeah, it's okay, fine, whatever, we would be at stalemate. We would be.
Well, that's why there's heaven, there's earth, and there's that gray area right in the middle that is the unknown, and most people fear or reject it.
And, you know, the new concept that came up in the 70s was the higher and lower self. And I was in India at that time teaching, and I had a lot of very, very spiritual experiences in India. And one of them was, I wanted to give the woman who was in charge of the orphans money in rupees. And so I'm holding my purse up here above my head, trying to get the money out, while all these little kids are jumping, trying to get the money. And she finally said something in Hindi or whatever, and they all stopped. It was like the voice of God has spoken, you know. And when I went in with her into a little shelter area and sat down, she wasn't the only one. There were several. She looked at me and she said, "You're a master." And I looked at her and I said, "Master? No, I'm not a master. I'm psychic. I'm a healer." You know, told that, and she leaned forward like that and she said, "You don't know you're a master." I said, "No, I don't." She said, "Your eyes tell me." Now I'm bringing that forward because it doesn't matter whether it's a master or not, but she was seeing my eyes. And we all need to look into the eyes of one another. And you notice that people who are insecure and unstable, they quickly snatch a look and look away. And they talk about it, and they're looking around the room, and they look and look away, you know, this kind of thing. And you know how you can see in their eyes their fear, their worries, their anxieties. And the minute you connect on that level, eye to eye, something happens. Brain starts sharing. Have you noticed that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing, because what we see is what stimulates the brain to really work. When you go to sleep, you're not looking at it, you're not seeing anything, right? You're not conscious of smelling or tasting because you're not eating or doing anything, right? So the eyes go inward, they go up in your head, and they look up here at your images. Now that's where your deep subconscious can bring forward one of those programs that you've downloaded somewhere and put it into your images. And then later when you're awake, you can wake up with an idea, and that starts you off on the pathway of a new consciousness. So it's very interesting how we evolve.
Yeah, but most people don't know how to go on that path of new consciousness because they're already stuck in a rut, which is why there's a higher need for the things that you and I do on a daily basis. It's because
which is why we've been struggling for so long trying to get a university online together. And it slowly comes, you know, a little bit of information, and it falls away, a little bit of information. We struggle, we do a bit, and we say we're going to put it up soon, and then something else gets in the way and it blocks it. It doesn't matter whether it's situations, health, to education or whatever. Those things that come up and block us from moving forward is like a signpost saying you haven't got enough information yet. You don't know enough yet. And so I'm using that as an example for everyone on this planet who is trying to break out of the old mold right now. They're having the same thing as us in their style, according to their life. Something keeps propping up that blocks it. Mm-hmm. Now, it's a very valid time of on, off, because we're looking at what we believe and what we think. And at the same time, we're trying to justify keeping it, but we already know in the heart chakra, that's history. It's like one of my friends yesterday, she said, I'm going through my clothes. I found a couple of things. Would you like them? Actually, I did take a couple of things. But I just said to her, you know, someone out there is going to just fall over having these things because they're running around in holy t-shirts.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what we have to realize right now, coming away from 9/11, is to stop having the animosity against the Muslims, to stop going on about Afghanistan and we were there and we put billions of money into them and it's all destroyed and we've wasted our money. Hey, the powers that be that controlled us here thought they were doing good. Well, apparently they weren't doing so good. But the bottom line is we, the people, have made a pact that we follow those leaders. Now, what we've learned over the last 200 years, and it's very important people hear this, is that we stop choosing leaders by the look of their face and their appearance and the mouth and words. Look at the eyes.
Yeah, but on top of that, when you say that, I mean, removing the eyes and stop looking at the vanity.
No, not removing that. Look in the eyes.
Looking at the eyes, sorry. But removing, here's what I was going to say, removing the vanity of a person. Why do we really actually need leaders? Why can't we train ourselves to actually think in a mindset to do things be autonomous in such a way that we can be guided to do and perceive ourselves to be doing the right thing?
Because it is the nature of mankind and the nature of the universe and the nature of God that there is always supposed to be one primary that starts the ball rolling. So, for example, using the nature of a bull, if I was the very first person to realize that I could make a bladder of a cow, say, into a ball shape and pump some water in it, and then kick it around, and everybody goes, oh, that's a stupid game, but it's fun, let's join in. And the next thing you know, we're on the pathway from thousands of years ago to having a football game in the Rosemead Bowl Parade thing. You know, so you see what I'm saying? It takes a long time for an idea, an image, or something created to really find its ultimate reason it's here. It's just a toy that we play with over time. And when we get to a point where we've mastered all the facets of that toy, it's not useful anymore. It's old, it's got to be dumped. Well, we're at that point where people are still rationalizing, I need the football. And the oneness is trying to give us, I don't know, let's say a hockey stick, just stay in the games, you know, and you just cannot kick a hockey stick, right? You'd have to find a different use for it, you know. So don't go there. That's the negative side. but the whole thing about change is we want it in one breath and we don't want it in another breath. We want to be saved, but we don't want people to interfere while they're saving us. We want to learn something and we want support, but we don't want them to tell us what time we have to get there and what time we have to leave. You know, there's always this something doesn't quite fit me that's a nuisance. But we know at the same time that you have to put yourself out if you want to be part of the tribe, the world's tribe. So what's going to happen in our future, I think, is that we need to understand we need more magnet schools. You know, for anyone who doesn't know what those are, schools that really target on giving every child the opportunity of hands-on as well as theory and good education, good teachers, even if it's downtown LA where the kids don't want to know, or downtown India or something. Those buildings have to come and those children need to go to them, not at a price, but at a desire to want to go. Everything being free is in our consciousness right now not possible. You have to pay the groundsman to do the, you know, the flowers. You have to pay the guy to go clean up all the desks, cases, germs. You know, this goes on, and they all want pay and they all want wages. But what if we all got paid instead by a roof over your head, and every day a box of groceries ends up on your doorstep for that day? So you don't have to go shopping anymore, and all you can do is study and learn. Would we become super brains? Would our body atrophy?
That's what exactly why I just said. Why do we, if we are trained to think autonomous and to make the initiation, to, you know, I'm not saying that we don't need leaders, but if we wouldn't have the need to have leaders who we look at so vain, rather than look for the opposite, which is what we should be looking for. And so, you know, if I took away the world's food, what's going to happen then? Who's going to make the initiation? We're all going to be starving. So we're all going to be fighting each other and eating each other.
Yeah, but that's the past, you see, is what I'm saying. We have to evolve away from that to the idea and the understanding that every life is valuable and that everybody should be educated, fed and clothed and have a roof over their head. And we all know that. So the only way we can get that is to dump the idea that we need to be codependent and rather all become one cell, as it were, of unification. So anyone who's got food in India gets food in India because they're in India. We don't have to have their Indian food shipped over here to our place. Everyone in America would have hamburgers. That's what everybody thinks about. Not that I would, but you know.
And that's exactly what I've been talking since Wednesday. I've been talking about eco-psychology, about how we come together as a community in order to sustain a community, to grow it. And so, you know, this is exactly where it's leading to it. But majority of people just don't think that way.
Well, that's because they haven't been brought up that way. That's what I'm saying. We have to go through 3 generations, as Spirit said. The 3rd generation will think that way. But the first two, they're building the process of change. So, right now the kids being born will grow up and they'll be saying we have to change A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but we keep X, Y, Z. Then they will pass on, their kids will grow up and there'll be another generation. So they will then say, well, look, we kept A, B, C, but actually X, Y, Z sounds better. We'll use X, Y, Z and dump A, B, C. So it's a complete flip. We need that. We have to have it.
We have a message here from John from Uganda, who said,
John.
Convey my greetings to Dr. Margaret. I admire her wisdom.
Thank you, John.
And he also said, indeed, it takes a long time for good ideas to be embraced by many people, but it doesn't stop us from starting and sharing ideas.
He's absolutely right.
First time John's actually joined us for a while. He's been wanting to join us on the live stream because of the time difference in Uganda. It's been a little bit difficult for him, but he says, greetings to my amazing doctors. I agree with the information you are sharing with us.
Thank you. Maybe one day you'll be able to talk to us online and see you, which will be wonderful. So do keep coming back and please do tell other people, because the more people know across the world that these two people are trying their hardest to share and wake people up to the idea that there's so much more that can happen in your life if you just embrace change. So please share.
We stop being so ignorant. We stop being so ignorant and pretty much selfish in our ways to the point where we just care about nobody but ourselves.
Well, I did the show on greed and all those things, and anyone listening who wants to go back and look at my shows, they're up on soundcloud.com. Dr. Margaret Speaks, right? Is that right? Is that right?
soundcloud.com/Dr. Margaret Speaks.
Thank you. And you'll see a whole bunch of loads of them, been doing this for 10 years or more. But the more recent ones I've been focusing on with the one that's in my head, talking about this change and the transformation and going back in time to take a look at what was and how people thought, and then asking the very important question, if that was the way 500 years ago and it's out of date, why are you doing it today? You don't need to, it might be, back then they're thinking a certain way just to make it silly or about bread. And here we are today doing the same thing, thinking about computers. The essence of the lesson is the same. And so have we really evolved that much? We've evolved in terms of the numbers of us. We've evolved in terms of the way the world communicates and shares and so on. But the primary core energy of our beings, I don't think it's changed much at all.
No, we're still woefully ignorant. We're still back at the start again. A lot of us, we don't know how to live in the moment. Two, we live in the past because we're trying to make a future. And so therefore, when we make a future, we can't live in the moment because we're reflecting on the past.
Right. And I have a word for that. We are each emotionally a magnet. We attract to us somebody else who has the same kind of emotion. And then we rationalize mentally, oh, here's my best friend I've been waiting for forever. But the current emotion of the attraction at that time could be, say, we want freedom of speech. Let's make it a public thing. Okay. So, we bond together and we go and talk about what we want and what we need and so on. But then we go home and we got different husbands, different kids, and we have different, consciousness about all that. And let's say then we come together to talk about the family issues because we've both got separate families and freedom of speech. And we can't agree now because this person's got kids that are highly intelligent and this person's got kids that are stupid. Just make it really different. Okay. And so when they talk about their problems, and they're missing one another because they have a different point of view. And that is what we call growth. The different points of view cause us to emotionally change. And we do it by getting angry first, feeling we've lost something, But at the same time, ultimately, we want to get something else. So we open up to receiving.
Unless by of course that we come across a perception that is just completely shut down and we have the opposite reaction.
Well, when you're talking about that, they're mentally disturbed and mentally lost in themselves and need help. But you can't help them, that second law, you can't help them until they ask.
No, exactly.
Yeah. Mm.
You can't.
And then you get someone, you know, like Hitler. I mean, we've got to look at these Messiah consciousness for a minute here in everybody. You know, when Hitler was born, he had the dream of a beautiful green world with everyone fed and clothed and whatever. And, you know, by the time Germany was rising up, it was not rising up, it was destroying, falling down because of the Tsar and the First World War. So the people were greedy, they wanted more, and they wanted someone who was going to stand up and say, I'll get you more. And along comes this little man who's had the dream of having a world that has more. And then what climbs onto him are the suckers, as I call them, the people who want a piece of the cake. And so they start saying, I can help, I can help. What do you want me to do? Well, I have a dream about, you know, pure race. Okay, well, I'll go out and clean out the race. Then it wasn't actually Hitler that set up all those prisons. It was the men under him that made all that happen. And you can read about it. But the point is here, a nice, sweet kid turned up to be a monster, as people say. But ultimately, he died the death of a monster anyway, in terms of denigration, dissolvement, and all the D's. It's in my book, My Journey into the Oneness, The Way to Oneness Revisited, right at the back chapter, really explains it, about God and the universe and all this stuff, and the Christ and the Antichrist and so on. And so then we got Jesus, who was born into a very controlled society. Everybody knew where they were and what they were doing. And here's a child that does not want to follow the rules. He's out playing games on the Sabbath. Okay, he's making miracles when he's not supposed to be able to do it. So what are you doing? You know, and he's going and talking to the cow on the day you're not supposed to, because it's stuck in the field and he wants to get it out. You know, so everyone's telling on him. He's out there. You know, Yosha is actually his name. Yes, we used to call him Sure, okay, in those days, because you corrupt names just like we do today, you know. So, you know, what are you doing? Don't do that. Your dad's going to come along. He's going to tell you off. You're going to get in trouble. I'm doing my thing. Leave me alone, you know. And so he was a rebel kind of kid. And yet by the time he passed on, he was totally subliminal, totally quiet, didn't say a word. Okay. So we go through these changes, each of us individually, day by day. And it only takes one person to come into our life and be that magnet that moves the energy, that causes us to think outside the box, that then takes us either into a lower, demoralized, low self, i.e. Hitler, or into the higher self, i.e. Jesus. And we're all struggling with that all the time. Am I an angel or am I devil? What are you today?
I dance for the devil. I love the devil. Look at my hair.
Yeah. I know. I there are days when I feel I have to tell someone that they're bad or, you know, whatever for their own good. And I'm very bad. You know, it was my kids, that's different. But for people who come in, I'm very tactile. I go all around the houses till I get them to see that they're in their own way. And sometimes it's really difficult when you've got someone who's really insisting. You know, I have an idea here of when we used to have psychic fairs and all these people would be outside with their banners. These people are evil, they're of the devil, because they're doing psychic readings. I guess I'm the devil. I've always been the devil because I'm still doing psychic readings, you know. But that is so typical of how people would try and destroy one another. Have you had anyone try and destroy you?
I've always got people trying to destroy me. It's called jealousy and envy.
exactly. You know, they want what you got, and if they can't get it, then they put it down. And we have a very strong destructive part in our body always. It's going on inside. I mean, your food goes in your mouth, it's been destroyed and changed and altered through your system till it comes out the other end. But what have you got out of it? You've digested the goody parts and you're using that to rebuild your body. Well, I see that the same in a simple way of, you know, bad stuff comes at you and you think, oh my God, or maybe it's good stuff and the opposite. It's either way it can happen. You know, you taste some good food, you taste some bad food. And it goes through your mind, it goes through emotions, and eventually it comes out one end as either I'm so happy that I'm glad that bad thing happened, or I'm so miserable that that good thing happened. I'll give you an example on the good thing. I had a couple in England who were always doing the football pools, which is like the lottery here. And they won. They won £94,000 in those days. They went out, they bought this, they bought that, they had all their toys, they bought a house. And what happened? They rowed, argued, and because she was the one that put the coupons in, at the end, when she divorced him, she also asked for all her toys back. And under the law, he had to give them back because she was the winner and she'd given them to him. And it was private public property between them, as they did it in those days. And she took his Jeep and she took his boat, whatever. And she found someone else. She married him. She gave them all to him. What did he do? He took her for a ride. She ended up with nothing.
Yeah.
He ended up with nothing, but he got more because he was also still studying metaphysical stuff. So he was growing. But to this day, I lost contact with them, so I don't know where they are. But it's a typical example of where people try and love one another, control one another, and they make money their God between them, and it destroys their relationship. And that was where they absolutely had nothing before and they were happy. And as soon as they got all that, everything went wrong.
And that goes the same with the pathway of sex as well. You can get it so wrong and have relationships go down south really, really quickly. It's the same fact with money, sex, and rock and roll. What else is there more? We become so gluttonous to the things and the desires and the needs that we want in life that we just really don't know how to appreciate.
That's a good word. Let's say it again. Everyone is like a pig. You are a glutton and you are greedy. And as long as you keep wanting to eat and eat and eat more, which is buy more technical equipment, buy more furniture, buy more this, when you've already got stuff that serves you well enough for now, i.e. my phone is now 5 years old and I am not going to go out and get a latest iPhone and never will because it's working fine. Okay. So we have to learn to stop wanting the latest thing that somebody online is pitching like a little devil over there. Yes, you've got to have this lovely new phone. It's so wonderful for you. And you're like, oh, yes, I have to have it. You know, you've got to say no. No, I don't want it. What I've got serves me well. Be content with what you have. Now, if you're on the other side of the fence and you've got nothing, be open to receiving it by going out into the world and sharing yourself with people. Like volunteer at a place and you'll get fed and you'll find people who say, oh, I know a shop up the road, they've got a new sofa. I can tell you that most of my furniture in my house is secondhand. I used to call myself secondhand Rose with secondhand clothes because I still do that. I like old-fashioned clothes. This is old, it's out of date, but I like it. See, it's got sleeves.
Gone are the days that we used to do the whole hand-me-downs. I think a lot of my kids, especially, all four of my children have had all hand-me-downs mostly, and I haven't had to get anything that is new. Unless it was absolutely needed, because I didn't feel the need to. Why, it's like the old saying, what is trash is another person's treasure. Well, in that
Mm.
case, it's about recycling, ethically recycling things. I mean, obviously there's a lot of trash that you can throw out, but at the same time, there's a lot of trash that we can recycle. And I'm not talking about the, being a nut here in recycling. I'm just saying that instead of actually wasting our money on something that is shiny and sparkly and glittery and all that jazz, find something that is secondhand, because I guarantee it's going to work. It's going to serve the same purpose as what it is to the next person as it is to what to yourself.
Yeah, and you're right. And I wanted to add here, the creative side of self can have so much fun repairing something. Like I told you, I've got the table and chairs in the Goodwill. And there are lots of scratches on it. And I had so much fun just dabbing on my colors and making it look that it didn't have a scratch. And now every time I walk out to my kitchen and see the whole set together, because I had two separate sets, so I can't put them together, I still say to Spirit, thank you, oneness. Thank you, whoever gave up those tables. I have them. Thank you for not needing them anymore. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to use my creative skills to make them look polished and wonderful. I'm so happy with them. We need that appreciation for ourselves and for the oneness as well. We shouldn't forget that.
Exactly. And it's like this eraser right here. It has a love heart on it. It's got a spot. Now, I didn't buy it like that. It's not supposed to come like that. Now I need a new one. Now, why the hell would I do that? When it can be recut, you can take it off. You can redesign it, make it the way that you want it. I really don't get it. I don't.
Yeah. And I just want to say, because we're running out of time, I'm sure, but that another thing is invention. You could say, I don't know why I'm seeing this in my head, but you could take a wheelbarrow, take off the wheels, take off the handles, and you just got the bin part. And then maybe you could take that out and put it in your garden, paint it up, make it fancy looking on the outside, and have a flower bed in it. On your front porch, because you've got no garden.
Better idea.
What's that?
Paint the inside of it and turn it into a baby bath.
Well, yeah. Good. Yeah, that could be.
I was just going to say, Mary said in the chat here, I don't believe in the devil. I know there is evil in the world.
There isn't a devil, but there are devilish, impish shapes and beings in the dark side. I'm going to be talking about the dark side on the psychic show that I do on Sundays.
Yes. So for those who do want to join up, I'll be putting up some promos very, very soon within the next 24 hours. So please look out for Mary. Mary, in regards to that subject, this is our fortnightly class that we do on a Sunday at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. So you're more than welcome to join us.
That's my time, by the way, Arizona time. Yeah,
Arizona time. Before we get to making those announcements and wrapping up the show, John just mentioned here, gluttonous is a very inhumane character that blocks us from thinking about other people's situation. I have lived by the generous donations from others that find peace in sharing.
Yeah, and that is a very important thing, to let the giver know you enjoyed the receiving and appreciate it. When you give to a friend up the road, they're saying to you, thank you, as you give it to them. So that's done. But when you go to the Goodwill store or you go anywhere, always walk away saying, whoever made this, like the table I have, I even thanked the original person who made it in the factory, or wherever they made it. I send that through the string from the beginning of it to how it ended up in my life. And so I just generally thank all those who had hands on it. And coming back to the, because we should wind up in the same way, coming back to the 6 degrees of separation. Okay, when I say that mental thank you to all the people that made it possible for that table to be in my life, I am sending out that energy. It's not the actual thank you, it's the energy of my feeling and my brain that's sending that out. And somewhere, and I'm now going to do Einstein's thing with the circles, and say that those people out there may never even know my name or even exist, or that I've got their table, but they will feel that energy and respond. And that response goes into the universe. And then maybe Joan, who's living in Timbuktu, picks it up. And she goes out and gets something. And she shares that thank you by the memory of knowing that she should thank everyone in her own way. And so it's constant. There's always someone sending a thank you out there, as much as there is someone sending out I hate you kind of thing. And there's that friction in the cosmos, there's that friction in the universe, there's that friction of all things. And so we need to understand we are an essential part of the oneness. And I'm going to wrap it here in my mind with, let you finish after that, is you have to thank one cell in your body for its existence, wherever it is in your body, because it's very important to the cell next to it, the cell above it, and around it, in that it's doing its little job very well for you. And so appreciate all those cells in you. Say thank you to yourself for having a wholesome, healthy body by nurturing and loving it. That's it.
Something then, but I won't. It's all good. Just in wrapping up, for those who do want to join us next week, we've already advertised what next week's show is going to be. It will be on at 7 p.m. Eastern and 4 p.m. Arizona time or Pacific time for those who are either in Arizona or on the West Coast. We'll be talking about the rejection syndrome. Hopefully you can join us. Again, you'll see all of the advertisements up on social media. If you want to go check our websites out, you can go to Samaras Center. It's .com, easypeasysolutions.org, samaraseducationcenter.com, theuniversalchristchurch.com, and askdrmargaret.com, and Soma-Fusion.com, and for all of the shows that we broadcast on Soma Fusion Media, you can go to somafusionmedia.com. And if you have any inquiries for us, you can email us at Samaras, SUMARISUCC, or one word, at gmail.com. Now, as for, I don't know if you want to tell what the upcoming class that we have every fortnight, that's on at 2 p.m. Pacific time, or 5 p.m. East Coast time. That is going to be on what? Angels, demons, and what was the other thing? I forgot.
Yeah, we're basically talking about the stability. I can't remember the title because I haven't got it here. I'm in my front of the computer and everything's out in the other room. But we'll put it up. So just look on our Facebook pages and you'll see the links for what it is. But I'm basically, showing people how the dark side is also within it, is the light. We talked last week about the dark side and is that, but I'm talking about the channeling now and the connecting and the energy joining together. So I'll be writing some paragraphs on it eventually. So we invite students to come on, it's free and here, and it's all relative to your psyche, your psychic ability. And that will ultimately lead to, if you want to develop your psychic ability with me in a class when we finally get the school up online. And by the way, you probably heard us talking about, we're going to have the university online soon and so on. It takes a lot of work to do this. And we need the right people who want to get involved in this. So we've got someone that's going to help us build a real university online, thanks to Katie meeting that person. And, I'm having to write a lot of stuff and I'm having to choose certain courses and classes and simplify them because we're doing shorter online talks with these things because we can't have physical contact yet. But in time we will, bring physical contact jobs places where they can come and have a good time with us, and learn the practical sides of these things as well.
Absolutely. And of course, we are both open for healing services as well. If you require healing or counseling, please contact us. You can contact us by email or by social media. If you are on social media, please connect with us on social media. Find us, we're everywhere pretty much. And not only that, send us an email or a message letting us know what you guys want to actually learn about, so that we can formulate shows, not just because we come up with them every week. In fact, when we come up with a topic, we literally free wing it. There is no script, there is nothing. We've got no notes in front of us whatsoever. We're just literally talking for 2 hours and interacting with you guys as we see fit. So it would be really, really nice for you guys to reach out to us. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know what you want to learn. And of course, we will be back next week. Unless you have anything else to say, Margaret?
Well, I just wanted to say sharing. And when I say sharing, first-hand experience is what you've sat there, you've listened, and what you think. So if you share, I enjoyed this, and I suggest you might want to come and listen to the next one, and give the link to your friends. We would appreciate that, because word of mouth has always been, since the dawn of time, the way that people trust. Yeah,
I was just going to say too that the Soma Fusion Mind, Body and Soul YouTube channel, like, share and subscribe that, because all of the archives that you see right here, including there is playlists. There's 2 playlists. There's one playlist that is dedicated to Soma Fusion Media and the broadcast that we have on, like you see this evening, and there's another playlist for the Soma Fusion Academy and the Samaras Education Center. That playlist there is basically with all of Margaret's radio shows, all of the archives that you could possibly see up there. And in Margaret and I, when we talk about the stuff that we educate about, it is up there for you to see and share, and spread that knowledge around, because it's really needed.
Yeah. So I want to thank everyone who has been here today listening. We appreciate you.
Yeah, there's been a few. There's been a few.
Yeah, we really appreciate that, because obviously we don't know what's going to turn up each time. So if you do sign up and put your name, say, or even if you haven't, you're listening on a device in a car or something, do get home and shoot us a little thing on Facebook and tell us what you liked about the show. We'd like to hear from you, points, whatever. Excuse me. I'm still clearing my throat chakra.
Well, with that said, we're going to bid you adieu, and we'll be back next weekend with another brand new show. Again, we'll be on Saturday evening, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 4 p.m. Pacific Time for West Coasters, and also again on Sunday with a class that we're going to be teaching at 2 p.m. Pacific Time and 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we hope you can join us next week. Until then, have a beautiful weekend, and we'll see you then.
And be positive. Don't get into the negative this weekend. Be positive.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Love you.
Bye-bye. Love you.